Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Top 5 undervalued players at ADP right now. It's April the 11th, so the NFL draft is still a couple of weeks away, but fantasy drafts are already happening for real money over at Underdog Fantasy and everywhere else right now. Obviously, this will pick up as Best Ball Mania gets released in May, and the puppy tournaments and all the, the high stakes and the low stakes stuff on Underdog and DraftKings and FFPC and everywhere else. But we want to be prepared to hit the ground running when we start doing these drafts. I know that a lot of people think that they have to wait until August to do their fantasy football drafting, but football season never stops. So we want to be on top of everything that we can. And right now, based on real money drafts and ADPs, I have 5 players that I believe are underpriced at ADP that we need to be looking at once their draft rounds come up. So thank you for being here on the brand new fantasy football channel. If you wanted to support, I would appreciate a like on this video. Leave me a reply down below with a couple of players that you think are undervalued at ADP. Subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, drop a like on the video, all that good stuff that helps out in the algorithm. I appreciate you guys very much for being here once again. And let's hit it.
He's a legend.
As I said in the opening, real money drafts are already underway for Best Ball over at Underdog Fantasy. You get a $100 deposit match. All you have to do is sign up on Underdog Fantasy, use the promo code ALSMIZZLE, all one word, and you get a match of up to $100. So if you deposit 100, you get 100. If you deposit 50, you'll get 50 free dollars that you can use on pick'ems or best ball drafts for baseball or basketball, rivals, whole lots of ways. And it basically is just giving you free money to sign up. So go check it out. It's a great app, and they have a companion website as well if you'd rather draft on desktop. My first undervalued player is Keenan Allen. Absolutely consistent year in, year out. Target monster, gets a ton of usage in a very high volume, high powered, high scoring offense that only projects to score more points in 2022 based on all the other quarterbacks that are in this division. Now, all the teams in that division, the Denver Broncos and the Chiefs and the Chargers themselves have tried to do what they can to bolster their pass rush, to bolster their defensive back situations, their secondaries, to try and limit these quarterbacks, right? Because the two things that you need to do is do things that either help your quarterback or impede the other team's quarterback's potential for efficiency. But like, good luck trying to make historically efficient Russ Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, or Keenan Allen's quarterback, Justin Herbert, the guy who's, leads the NFL history in his first 2 years in like yards and touchdowns and every single stat for the first 2 years of a career. Keenan Allen gets to catch passes from this guy and get in shootouts where there's probably going to be in those 6 games. The Raiders too, Derek Carr has been extremely solid the last 2 seasons. They added great wide receiver in Devontae Adams to their offense as well. So these 4 teams are going to be so efficient. And so that's 6 games right off the rip that Keenan Allen gets to get 10 plus targets against, as there could be 60 or 70 real life points scored in those games. He's right now being drafted in the 4th round, an ADP of 36.4, just into that 4th round, right at the 3-4 turn. He is the 14th wide receiver being taken. So he hasn't passed 30 yet. He's not a type of wide receiver like a Tyreek Hill or a Mecole Hardman, somebody who depends on their speed. His job is dependent on his route running, the offense, his ability to get open, both against man, get separation, or sit down against zone. And you see how many targets he gets. And so, there's not going to be any sort of need for increased efficiency, even though real life scoring is something that's going to happen for this Chargers offense. He is going to be a target monster year in, year out. And the efficiency is there with an increased touchdown ceiling if he gets a little bit more usage inside the red zone. And considering how much efficiency, like over efficiency, somebody like Austin Eckler had inside the red zone without getting end zone targets last year, there's a lot of fluctuation and a lot of randomness in those touchdowns where Austin Eckler was on the right side of variance last year with those. I'm not saying Keenan Allen's going to end up with the 7 or so touchdowns that Austin Eckler had in the red zone that weren't end zone targets, but I expect him to see a few more end zone targets this year than he saw last year, just with the amount of trips that they project to take into the red zone itself. So another player in this 4th round, Cam Akers, 36.7, being chosen right around Keenan Allen. They kind of go sandwiched in those spots. And if you're picking at the 3-4 turn, you can get those 2 players. Another Los Angeles player. I like the Los Angeles teams, and it's not because I live in Los Angeles. It's because they score an awful lot of points. Now, Cam Akers last year was ridiculously inefficient. But like, can we at least give the dude a pass because he came back from an injury that used to either sideline players for 18 months or end their careers in a lot of different cases? That Achilles injury is absolutely no joke. So like, you look at his yards per carry and it was like 2.6 in the playoffs, and he really didn't get very much efficiency at all. He couldn't get started, but he looked fine, right? Now, like, you look at the efficiency that he did not have. Now, granted, I would have liked to have seen increased efficiency against the Bengals in the Super Bowl, but like San Francisco, they were like a top 10 DVOA rush defense. So was Tampa Bay. You don't play running backs against Tampa Bay. We know that. Arizona, also a very solid team in terms of rushing DVOA for that defense. So like, he played a ridiculous gauntlet of teams that do exactly the thing that he was not able to do. Now, you give him another 8 months removed from that Achilles injury that he bounced back from in like 4 or 5 months. That was ridiculous in and of itself. So like, now he's got a situation where he's got an entire other offseason to get back, to regain that explosiveness. And again, like I said, he looked fine on film. He just wasn't getting anywhere, but neither were any of the other Rams running backs, which is a testament to how strong those playoff defenses were. Now, you give him a regular season schedule, you give him that high-powered Rams offense that scores 25 to 35 points every single week, and the historical data that we have on McVay that says once he picks his lead running back, that guy is going to get his 20 touches, is going to be included in the pass game. We know that Akers has been explosive and was projecting to be he was like a end of the first round, high second round draft pick last year before the injury. Now you're looking at a situation where he's stepping right back into that role. And like I said about McVay, when they get inside the 5 or the 10 yard line, they hand the ball off to their running backs, as we saw early last season with Henderson being one of the league leaders in terms of inside the 5 and inside the 10 carries for the first 6 or 7 weeks before he kind of sustained those injuries. So Cam Akers stepping into a ridiculously high volume role in a very high scoring offense going in the 3rd, 4th rounds. Love this pick here. If you have not yet visited the Smizzle Shorts and Clips channels, try saying that 5 times fast. It took me a while to like practice that little read. So like, little pat myself on the back for that one. And all of the other channels in the network. You guys are here on the Fantasy Football channel. We have the More Smizzle channel if you wanted to take a look at some of the other on-stream conversations that we have that are a little more random, but I wanted to post for you guys here on YouTube. The main channel where you see all of my DFS talk during football season, and the Smizzle Games channel, which is like video games and NFTs and other things that I just kind of enjoy doing. I've kind of separated these out for you guys, but the Shorts channel has all of that micro content that you guys like. So go give that one a follow as well. Thank y'all for being here. I do appreciate you. My next undervalued player. People love to hate Ezekiel Elliott. People love to say that Tony Pollard is a better back. He may be. Who's to say, right? But Ezekiel Elliott played last year on a torn knee ligament and was fine, had 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. The volume didn't decrease. He would not take himself off the field. Tony Pollard is explosive. Tony Pollard is not going to take carries or touches away, per se, from Ezekiel Elliott. Looking at what he did before the injury, 21 carries, 3 targets, 17 carries, 3 targets. He was getting enough volume to warrant being picked where he was last year. Now, everybody's fallen off of him because fantasy football can be reflexive, right? We love to look at what happened last year and say, well, what happened last year is totally going to be what happens down the road and in the future. He's a year older for sure, but he's like 26. It's not like he's a 32-year-old running back where everybody wants to pretend like he's like over the hill and all this. Like, he is now going to come into this season healthy. And when he was healthy last year, he was getting 20 touches a game and one of the league leaders again in terms of those inside the 5 carries. With the subtraction of Amari Cooper and a couple of the other pieces on that offense, I could see Ezekiel Elliott getting himself 20 touches a week with inclusion in the pass game and being one of the league leaders in terms of inside the 5 carries as they lean on him a little bit more, whether narrative's sake to try and justify the huge contract that Jera gave him, or whether it's just because that's what this offense does. It is what it is. If he gets 65 to 70% of the running back touches, which is what I'm projecting him to get, that still leaves room for Tony Pollard to eat as a 0 running back target. But Ezekiel Elliott, with an ADP of 57.6, being drafted as the RB24, seems to me like somebody who should easily pay off that draft tag and more than probably produce a profit. Now, if he stays healthy for the majority of the season. If he stays healthy through week 14, 15, 16, whatever, and does not deal with a torn knee ligament that he tries to tough it out and play through, all of a sudden you're going to see a guy who has the potential to end the season as an RB1, like a RB6 to RB12 on the season, that you're drafting as the RB24. This is an absurd draft price for somebody with that sort of upside on touches, predictability of floor, and potential for ceiling with as many carries inside the 5 as he gets. So I'll be drafting Ezekiel Elliott a lot as long as this ADP hangs around 57, 58. Courtland Sutton gets a massive upgrade because of that Russ Wilson trade. We talked about it earlier with Keenan Allen during his blurb that I was talking about up top. Courtland Sutton is not getting the love that Jerry Jeudy seems to be getting, because Jerry Jeudy is the bright, shiny toy because he's younger, he's the flashier guy, they spent a lot more draft equity on him, he's the name, right? But like Courtland Sutton, through like 4, 5, 6 weeks last season, had underlying metrics like air yards, target percentage, end zone targets, red zone target, everything that leads to, as Peter Jennings used to say, fantasy goodness. You know, CSU Ram 88 was all this leads to fantasy goodness, right? So like when you're getting that sort of volume, you should be able to pay off. Unfortunately, his quarterback last year was Teddy Bridgewater, who has done a lot to waste the potential of his pass catchers. Nothing against Teddy. It's just, it is who he is, right? He's a backup caliber quarterback in a league where when you have weapons that are all pro type weapons, you want an efficient quarterback throwing the ball. Well, he has that now. So if he gets those downfield throws that DK Metcalf used to get, and I'm not saying that Courtland Sutton is the talent that DK Metcalf is, but in fantasy, opportunity outweighs talent all day, every day, and twice on Sundays. So if he is going to get those looks downfield, those efficient looks downfield, with Russ Wilson being the second most efficient quarterback in terms of touchdown percentage since the year like 1995, like 0.1 or 0.2 percentage points lower than Aaron Rodgers, who's the number 1 most efficient quarterback, more than Tom Brady, more than Peyton Manning, more than Drew Brees in terms of touchdown percentage, you have a recipe for a lot more touchdowns than, I don't know, 2. Now, Courtland Sutton's got to stay healthy. His volume should increase based on this passing game. And I love the fit, both with everybody that's around him. Jerry Jeudy doing the short and intermediate stuff. We'll see if he can get loose deep. But Courtland Sutton has the ability to win in those short and intermediate routes as well, and also is the deep threat on the outside. So if we want to make the correlation that Jerry Jeudy is Lockett and Courtland Sutton is going to be utilized, at least in Russ Wilson's mind, as DK Metcalf, I'll buy this all day. At 71.1, he's being drafted as the wide receiver 28. So really low price that I think is going to continue to rise through the offseason. This reminds me of 2 seasons ago with the Texans when Deshaun Watson was still there and we were drafting Will Fuller in like the 7th and 8th round in early drafts, May and June, before that rose to like the 5th round. I could see this pick rising all the way up. We're getting him in the 6th, 7th round. I could see this rising up until like the 4th and 5th round by the end of the summer. So buy the value while you can. And my last underrated value play is the same guy that we have in this video every single year. Brandin Cooks does nothing but get a ton of targets and be efficient with them. 90 catches last year, over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns on kind of a bad team, but good play from his young quarterback, Davis Mills, who should project to at least be a little more efficient going into his second year with a full offseason of work as the number 1. Brandin Cooks signed a longer-term contract to stay in Houston with this squad, and he is the focal point of this offense. Double-digit targets in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, being drafted at the 83rd spot in terms of average draft position as the wide receiver 34. You're getting him as a back-end wide receiver 3 on your team, not having to spend very much draft capital at all, but being able to lock in all of that potential volume that you're going to get with downfield upside, with 20+ yard catches in a multitude of games last year. Houston does not project to play from ahead, so a lot of good game scripts for him as well. So Brandin Cooks, once again, going to show up on everybody's value picks this year because he's just perennially underrated in terms of his ADP, because he's not a 15 touchdown guy, but gets more than enough volume to help you out, especially in full PPR leagues, but can help you out in half PPR as well. So thank you guys for watching, and look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.